this week's show, the Georgia Southern men's basketball team remains unbeaten and on top in the Sun Belt standings. We'll give you some highlights from two of their games from this past week at home at Hanner Fieldhouse. Also take you out to the women's basketball as they win 2 in a row. All that and more as we welcome you inside the Eagles Nest.
Eagles came to fight, it's that blue, white. Eagles came to fight, Georgia Southern putting on the best show of your life.
And welcome inside the Eagles Nest. I'm your host, Josh Aubrey, being joined by Mike Anthony, sports editor and Georgia Southern beat writer for the Statesboro Herald. And Mike, we come in and the men and women both riding win streaks. Of course, the women's is only a couple of games, but for the guys, undefeated and on top in the league, thought maybe they might slip up. You had a perfect trap game for them. You had Appalachian State, who you'd think they might overlook because of their record, but it's really maybe not as bad a team as you thought. And then the Monday game, which we always know is tough with only that one day in between, anything can happen. And you've got Coastal Carolina, a team that's been to the big dance before. You know they're not going to be intimidated coming in to Hanner Fieldhouse, and instead a couple of high-scoring games, fairly close, but Georgia Southern prevails once again. First one maybe a little bit more from the free throw line, and the next one hit a lot of threes and played a good enough defense to pull it out.
Well, we've touched on it throughout the year about what makes this team good, and what I keep saying is this is a team that's learned to win, not only learn how to win games, but has learned to win in multiple ways. It's not a team that needs to play a certain way or have a certain player do his thing in order to beat you. You saw that against Appalachian State on Saturday night there. 56 total fouls called. It was a really grinding game with no flow. Usually that's not how Georgia Southern wants to play. They like to get out into space. They like to take shots early. They like to drive to the rim. Kind of hard when it's touch and go and you're on the free throw line every 45 seconds, but they stick to their guns. They build a big enough lead. App State, to their credit, couldn't seem to miss through the last 2 or 3 minutes. Georgia Southern gets 2 foul shots on one end. To their credit, they make both, but then App comes down, cuts into the lead with a three-pointer. It went that way for about the last minute and a half. So a 4-point win, maybe a little bit more lopsided than that final score would indicate. They were up 12, 15 points with just a couple minutes left. But then Coastal Carolina, a surprise team. Not a lot of people were thinking that they would contend in their first year in the Sun Belt, even though they are traditionally a good team. But they came in on Monday night 4-2 in a huge tie, gridlock there for second place in the conference. And Georgia Southern once again has a strong kick in the second half, built up a big lead in Coastal Carolina, a little bit like App, able to cut into it a bit, but Georgia Southern did a good job of distancing themselves enough to make sure that there wouldn't be a comeback.
And in that Coastal Carolina game, we've mentioned throughout the year that other guys have got to step up, but you've got the 1-2 punch of Ike Smith and Tukey Brown, and they seem to be getting it done pretty much on a regular basis. Where we've seen different people come through has been the rest of the team, whether it's Mike Hughes making some big shots for him, whether it's been some good play in the post by either Gladden or McConnell or even Monte Glenn. You see the first play of the game there in the Coastal game, they go right to Glenn with a drawn-up play, and he comes through with that and comes through the rest of the game. It's nice to be able to get those contributions from guys like that because you know you're going to need it eventually sometime in the year.
Yeah, the Eagles really showing that they know how to counterpunch. They have a reputation as a team that can shoot, and if they get hot shooting, they can get away from you real quick. So the last few games, teams have come out right away, tried to take them off the three-point line. On Monday night, they were ready. A couple of easy buckets inside for Monte Glenn. And you talk about the Ike Smith and Tukey Brown show, and it's great to have those guys going nuts up and down the court on the score sheet, but this really is a much more balanced team than what you would think from just hearing about what Ike, about what Tukey did on any given night. There were 5 guys on Monday night in double digits. You mentioned Mike Hughes. Monte Glenn got 11. B.J. Gladden, a huge addition to this team, really providing a spark in the last couple of games. So even though maybe a couple of guys are getting more of the highlights, this is a team that can beat you from just about anywhere on the court.
Ike Smith becoming the second Georgia Southern player to be named Sun Belt Player of the Week. He got it for this past week. Let's get out and see some highlights, and when we come back, we'll take a look at how the women are doing. The Sun Belt doubleheader Saturday, the Georgia Southern women looking for their second straight, hosting App State. Early on, it's Patrice Butler hitting the glass and coming up with the putback. Next, it's Butler with the nice moves going in for the reverse. She finished with 16 points in the game. App State keeps it close as Amber Driver hits the three-pointer. But the Eagles respond. Nicole Franks with the three. She'd end up with 10 points, one of three Eagles in double figures. Angel McGowan later on the move, driving for the layup. Back to Franks we go. Another of her three three-pointers in the game. She spots up and drains it. McGowan would lead the way for Georgia Southern with a game-high 19 points. And finally, it's Amira Atwater with the driving layup as the Eagles win a tight one, 53-50. On the guys' side, the Eagles looking to remain unbeaten in league play before a packed house, and Tukey Brown, three of his team-high 32. Jake Alsmiller then lets it rip, hitting one from just past the arc, and next from just past half court. He buries it. The Eagles out to an early lead. App State chipping away. Craig Hinton coming up with the layup. Ike Smith answers, driving in and hitting the tough shot here. Later, Monte Glenn inside with the turnaround here. More from Smith, who finished with 25 points. Smith continuing to find success in the paint. Hits the turnaround. App answers with Shabazz Ranshad, who had 36, including 6 three-pointers. But the Eagles come right back. Mike Hughes drives through for the easy two. Hughes next driving and finding Smith for the hoop and the foul. And finally, it's Coy Simmons with the rare jumper. And the Eagles win a shootout, 92-88. Georgia Southern looking to remain unbeaten and on top of the Sun Belt standings, hosting Coastal Carolina. The Eagles start off going to Monte Glenn in the paint, and he delivers on the hook shot next. It's Glenn getting free for 2 more. He'd have 11 points, one of 5 Eagles in double figures. Ike Smith adds 2 on the jumper here. Back to Glenn we go off the nice feed from Mike Hughes. Next, off the inbounds, a rare 3-point play opportunity for Jake Alsmiller inside. Smith then catching fire from behind the arc. First, the 3 from the elbow. Next, from the far corner, he finished the night with 21 points. Coastal trying to stay within striking distance as Siobhan Wiggins hits here, but the Eagles right back. Tukey Brown buries the 3-pointer. Hughes then spots Ike inside for the power jam. Hughes then buries the 3-pointer. The Eagles take a 12-point lead. BJ Gladden gets in on the fun. First, the 3-pointer from the corner, and next, he powers up for 2 more of his 12 points in the game. The Eagles with 16 assists. Here, Gladden to Tukey. Next, Ike Smith spots Monte Glenn for 2 more. Tukey leading the way offensively as he finishes with 23 points. And finally, it's Tukey Brown from way downtown as Georgia Southern wins 91-80. Well, next up for the men and for the women is going to be a trip to Alabama. South Alabama doubleheader on Saturday. The women play Troy on Thursday. The guys play them on Monday. Speaking of the women, let's talk a little bit about them, Mike. And they're on a little bit of a win streak here. It's got to be good for them. They win on Thursday and then turn around and win on Saturday. Thursday they beat Coastal, and Saturday they beat App State in the first of the doubleheader. Getting some production from a couple of the usual suspects, but also getting some bench contributions and some from other players as well.
Right, this is a team that knew it had to take the next step this season. A tough start in conference play, 0-3 all on their home floor, but they're starting to gain that confidence, starting to really believe in themselves, and I think the App State game, probably their best game of the year in conference play if you don't want to count hanging with Troy most of the way, probably their best singular effort, but the win against App State, which is a team with an above 500 record, it gets Georgia Southern a little bit closer to that 500 mark. They're right in the middle of things where they want to be. Hopefully now they can start to look at some revenge games. Troy's going to be a tough test, but South Alabama, a game they dropped earlier this season that they thought they could have won. It would be nice to get a measure of revenge there. And as you said, they're getting that revenge, or they're playing better because of more contributions. Going into the game, or going into the season, you knew that Angel McGowan, Patrice Butler, two girls that are all conference level players, you know they're going to be accounted for. And early on, there just wasn't enough help for them. They were asked to do too much. And now you look to the freshmen, specifically Amira Atwater at point guard. You've got Nicole Franks hitting some long-range shots, really heating up. That's what this team needs, not only to be competitive right now, but you look at McGowan and Butler, they're seniors on their way out. If Coach Kip Brown wants to really build this program, it's those young girls who need to start taking the steps now.
Yeah, I think one of the strengths Georgia Southern has is that they have a lot of big players on their team. The trouble is a lot of them like to stand outside and shoot threes. If they don't go in, there's nobody down there to make rebounds. So I think a lot of times when you see Patrice Butler kind of stop shooting as many threes and go down in the post where she's very effective, I think those are typically the games where Georgia Southern's been able to pull them out, and they've done that the past couple games. Hopefully that trend continues in Alabama. Well, as for football, still waiting. We've heard a lot of news about some guys that Georgia Southern has gotten commitments from. Sounds pretty good right now. Won't really get into that until signing day, I believe.
Is your fax machine ready for signing day?
Yes, Mike, it's that one time of the year where fax machines do come
Xerox
in.
stores reopen all across the nation.
And no alternate fax. This is just the fax machine. So hopefully we'll hear some good news next week for the Eagles as signing day gets closer. But that'll wrap things up for now. For Mike Anthony, I'm Josh Aubrey. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again next week.